Welcome to the For Real Though Show, the podcast with a purpose for the people. I am your host, Christopher Keith. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. If you want to participate, you can leave comments as well. So, hope you all are doing well. Today, we're going to do an episode of a series we call Real Game. Okay. And, excuse me, to recap, for those who didn't see our last episode of Real Game, I'll give you a little recap of the premise. Some things in life are not taught in school, and for many of us, they are not taught at home. Lacking wisdom in key areas can have us out here looking like some fucking idiots without even realizing it. When this is the case, you need someone to give you some real game. Definition of real game. Christopher's definition of real game is simply a statement of wisdom that has been learned through experience. Those experiences can be positive or negative. Real game is an organic kind of knowledge that if we have love for you or see potential in you, we will share this real game to help stop you from busting your head against the wall. To be really successful in life in any given area, at some point, you will need some real game. I myself have received real game, and I look forward to receiving more as needed. Does that make sense? Good, let's get started. So, today's lesson of real game, we're going to borrow a lesson from a brother who wrote a beautiful book. By this brother's name is Roy Wood Jr. Some of you may know him from like The Daily Show or his comedic exploits. But he wrote a book, and the book is called The Man of Many Fathers. So Roy wrote this book. He's like I don't know. He has a son, and he wrote a book to his son. Uh, Kind of like Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a book for his son. So he wrote a book for his son, and the book is called The Man of Many Fathers. So he wrote this book as a love letter to his son about just all the lessons he's learned in life. And although he knew his father while he was alive, I believe Roy's father has passed now. But although he knew his father very well, they had their time together. He didn't quite get everything he needed from his father. However, he got many lessons from many different men in his life, whether it was a coach, whether it was a guy like a guy by the name of Cocaine Mike, who's a guy that he worked with. It's really it's a great story. It's a great set of stories that I would highly recommend. So, in this case, we're going to take one portion of this book and learn a real game lesson from it. So, this starts in high school, Roy's senior year, and it's that time of year where you get a class ring. And on his class ring, he had, he had the school and all that good stuff, the number 21, which was his baseball number. He had his zodiac sign, Sagittarius, and the ring he got costed, I think he said it like estimated at about like $435 for this class ring. Now, I can relate to this story because I wanted a class ring when I graduated high school. Lincoln Senior High School class of 1985, shout out East St. Louis, Illinois. And it was like a really big deal. I wanted this class ring really bad. And I asked my father to buy me one. And I knew, the chances of him getting this ring was gonna be slim. I can't count my daddy's pockets, but I know like we was living paycheck to paycheck, and he was an independent salesperson, so he didn't have like a salary. You know what I mean? He had to go out there and get it, and so which meant like based on commission, and along with my father's lack of fiscal savvy at times, needless to say, simply getting lunch money every day consistently was a come up for me. As a matter of fact, I got lunch money from my daddy. It was $1 a day at that time. And I used to take $2, right? And I would get Michael Young's lunch card. Shout out Michael Young. Uh, that was my boy. and he would get a lunch card, for the weekend stuff because his family would fill out the little forms or whatnot. My daddy wouldn't fill out the form. I don't know. I don't know. He didn't fill out the form. And then I didn't really live in the district area, so kind of got complicated. So and Mike he didn't eat the school lunches. Anyway, so he wasn't missing it one way or the other. So he used to sell me his lunch card every week. And then I would go in there and eat that horrible lunch that would make me fall asleep in Miss Gillespie class every 6 hour because the food was so bad. Anyway, so I'd pocket this other $3 or whatever, and so again, we wasn't doing that great, to say the least. But needless to say, I wanted this ring, and man, I saw the one I wanted in this brochure. And I pitched it to my dad, right? And to my surprise, he said he'd get it for me. Now he didn't say it like, "Yeah, I get that for you, son." He was like, "Okay, yeah, I get it for you." It's cool, okay, okay, okay. And I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I remember it was sharp. It wasn't like the most expensive ring in the book, but it was sharp. It had a blue stone, like a opal type of stone. It was tight. And if I'm not mistaken, this ring cost about $225. So, I gave my dad the brochure and everything, picked out, filled the whole thing out. And after several weeks, some of my partners, they started getting their class rings and stuff. And I didn't get mine. So I asked him, hey, did you send the form in and stuff? And my daddy was like, yeah, yeah, son, I sent it, And, turns out that was a goddamn lie. Because it's 2026. I still ain't got that motherfucker yet. But I digress. Okay. Didn't get it. But Roy got his ring. Roy got his ring in high school. He was proud of it. And then after graduating, he went to school. He went to Florida A&M. And this was the year 1998. Okay, and what you got to understand about the trick about the class rings is, like I don't know how many of you all still got your class ring. If you do, God bless you. But one thing about a class ring that seems pretty relevant to me now that it wasn't then was that thing is really cool when you're in high school. But when you go to college, like ain't nobody checking you, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no girls checking you about your class ring, you know what I'm saying? About your high school ring, you know what I'm saying? So once you graduate and you go to, college, I mean, them joints is like persona non grata, right? Ain't nobody checking you, oh, let me see your high school class ring, right? And that's a scam, that's kind of a scam that they put on people, in my opinion now. Kind of like they put the scam of the credit card on people when college students first get to college. So, though my dad kind of, messed me over on that one, it turns out that it wasn't that bad of a deal after all. If I had a class ring, because I'm sentimental like that on memories, photos and stuff like that, I'm sure I would still have it. I would still have it. I would not wear it. So it would be like an heirloom. I might have gave it to one of my sons or something, who knows. But anyway, Roy didn't wear his ring in college, and it kind of sat back in a drawer uh, in his dorm room. So after like I think a couple years in college, then he finally got to a place where they could have apartments and stuff. So he shared apartment with a bunch of his boys. And so one time, he's came home from kicking it or what have you, go to his apartment and he find, like so a lot of people at his crib, a lot of people in his apartment, and along with that is a stripper who was entertaining his friends. And this wasn't a young sister, like this wasn't no young college girl that was stripping, no, it was like Roy estimated, based on her gray hairs, uh, and kind of facial features, he put her around the mid to late 30s, right? And so, Roy, he kind of chills, sits down, get him a drink and stuff. And for the last half hour of the show, he kind of just sit there and they're like, yeah, Roy, go on and get your dance on, you know what I'm saying? Because they had already paid the fee and everything, right? And so he's like uncomfortable with it, but he's like, I just sit there. I'm like, okay, but I'm good, blah, blah, blah. And after the show, the stripper, says, well, I'm gonna go upstairs, and change my clothes, get myself cleaned up, yada yada yada. It's like, okay, cool, 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 cool. So after 20 minutes or so, the sister come back downstairs and she asks these young men, which one of you schoolboy motherfuckers gonna take me back to my house? Now, the conundrum in this case was that Roy was the only one that had a car. Now, mind you, he didn't hire this girl. He doesn't know this girl, right? Didn't ask her to be there. And, so he thinking to himself, shit, that ain't got nothing to do with me, you know? And so he's like, hey, you need to talk to the person, who hired you. Well, by the time she went upstairs to go change, most of his boys had booked out. They had already taken off, went to go kick it, elsewhere. And so he like, he trying to be respectful and stuff. He like, ma'am, they don't really have nothing to do with me, blah, blah, blah. And so, but she ain't having it. So the sister's like, you motherfuckers gonna take me back to my motherfucking house or I'm gonna call Lucius. And if I call Lucius, it's gonna be some problems. Y'all don't want to see Lucius. So Roy talk it over, with a couple of his boys that's still sitting there, And Roy is a Southern boy. He's from Birmingham, Alabama. And he decided, okay, you know what? It's a black woman, you know, I'm not gonna leave her out here hanging like this. I don't really know who Lucius is, but why not just take her back to her place, you know? So he gets in the car, starts driving her back, and she's asking the questions, about school and this, that, and the other. She tried to make a play for him. It's kind of funny. She kind of make a play for him, and she's like, you know, pull this car right now, and I'll suck your dick for $20. So, but he's like, oh boy, so, but he's like, hey, no, I'm just gonna get you back to where you need to go. So, they get into her neighborhood, but she asks him to stop at this McDonald's. So, it's like, one of them situations where somebody take you somewhere, but you don't want them to know where you live. So you was like, you just drop me off right here. I'll make it the rest of the way. So he drops her off at the McDonald's and go back home. Roy goes back home, take a shower, you know, and he takes off one of his watches and puts it on the drawer, And so what he noticed when he put his watch on the drawer is that his other watches were missing. Okay. And then he started looking through all of his other stuff and found out mostly all his jewelry was gone, including his class ring. So he like put the panic button out, to again the cats that were there with him. Hey man, y'all check y'all shit, you know. And so they started going through their stuff and they noticed that, most of their stuff was gone too. And they're like, God damn it, she got us, right? So they get together, they get back in the car, they're gonna go back and get their shit. So they get together, they go back to the McDonald's, they grab their assorted weapons, okay, because they gotta be ready. And their weapons consisted of a baseball bat and some kitchen knives. Okay, so they was ready to storm the place, right? So they go in the name of the neighborhood in Tallahassee is called Frenchtown. And so Frenchtown is like it's like the hood, and it's like the hood, right? Not the basic hood, like the real hood. And so, they go in there and they start asking around, for this sister. And, they find out she's not a stripper. As you could tell probably from the I'll suck your dick for $20 comment that she made that she was a prostitute. And so, there was no service to call or anything like that because it's like, this is just some chick we picked up, you know what I mean? So they couldn't call the service, that sent the dancer, if you will. So they go around asking different people and stuff. Nobody knows nothing. Well, they know, but they ain't gonna tell it, because it's the hood. So ain't no snitching, ain't no talking, you know. And so they said, okay, well, let's just go to phase two. She talked about this guy named Lucius. They start asking for Lucius. Hey, y'all, who is Lucius? Where Lucius be at? You know what I'm saying? And these are like, mind you now, these are college kids, in the 98, so they probably got on cross colors. Probably all dressed like they on a different world and shit. And they start, so they like, hey, start asking about Volusius and ain't nobody talking, right? And so they kind of make a scene, where Roy decides he gonna make a scene. He's like, I tell you what, y'all gonna get motherfucking Lucius out here, or us ain't nobody gonna make no money, because I'm gonna blow up the whole motherfucking spot, with all this noise and rhetoric and whatnot. Ain't nobody making no money until I see Lucius. So, said that a few minutes later, car ride up slowly, right? Two black men in their 50s, who were hella calm, looked very hard, weathered, scars and stuff on their face and neck and whatnot. And Roy asked the brother in the passenger side if he knew Lucius. Okay. Dude doesn't reply. He asks again. And his boys, kind of got intense with it and started escalating. Yeah, motherfucker, y'all know Lucius? Where Lucius at? Y'all niggas know Lucius? Blah, blah, blah. And a man still didn't say nothing. And so Roy jumps in. He's like, you heard the man. Where the fuck is Lucius? And Roy, this time he slammed his hand on top of the car, because he's letting them know he's serious. And still, man, these cats was like really unbothered, like they did not react. So finally, the brother in the passenger side looked at them and said, go home. So Roy stood his ground, though, you know what I'm saying, with something to the effect of, fuck that, we ain't going home. That bitch took our watches, chains, class ring, and I'm gonna get my shit back. So now the brother who's driving, he looks at him. He's smoking a cigarette, blows the smoke out, and he simply says this, go home. See, you worried about what you lost, when the truth is, you need to be thankful for what you still have. Now, I'm gonna cruise this car down the street. I'm gonna circle the block. And when I come back, if y'all still back here stirring up shit, y'all gonna get what you was looking for. And you're gonna lose a lot more than what you've already lost. Again, dude said this nice and calmly. After he says this, slowly drives up the street. Okay. Got all the way down. They watched him till he all the way kind of got all the way down, close to out of sight. Saw the lights dim, and then saw the car slowly turn around. And as mad as Roy was about losing his stuff, and he was also kind of embarrassed, because he made this big scene in front of his boys, you know what I'm saying, and didn't get the results he thought he was going to get. And they decided to go home. And so he thought to himself, but he said he thought to himself that he was never more sure that death was nearer than at that moment in his life. To this day, he says the only time I ever felt like, yo, I can die, like for real, like it's imminent. And it just wasn't worth it. Again, the man never made eye contact with him or any of that. You know what I'm saying? He was just that cool with it. And so, they went home. And so the lesson he learned that night was just how to take a loss and how to learn to extract the lessons in taking a loss, right? I mean, he thought, could you imagine being 19 years old, stumping around the back of a McDonald's, arguing with a 50-something-year-old man about a 30-something-year-old sex worker ended up maimed or dead? And you're only 19 over a ring proclaiming you was a Sagittarius and you loved baseball. So he learned the lesson that sometimes you can get an education that money can't buy. And that night, he got one hell of a lifelong lesson that cost him a mere $425. So when I read that story, I was like, man, that is amazing. That is amazing, because how many times have we had a conflict in life? And in this situation, the man had a right to be upset. You know what I mean? They hired this girl. to perform a service. She did service, and then she had to go all extra and rob them. And so they had every right to be, upset. They had every right, you know, in fairness, if you will. But the reality is, man, is that sometimes life isn't fair. Sometimes you could do all the right stuff and still get got. And how you handle getting got is, it can be the difference between life and death. It really can. It can be the difference between jail, prison, and losing your life, not just death, but again, losing your freedom. You know, I know that there have been times where I was really angry about something and I went off, defending myself. And, I've been blessed, nothing's really come of it, you know, uh, but, um, but anytime a cooler head can prevail, sometimes it's just better for everybody, especially for you. Okay. So I think I did a podcast before about learning how to take a loss, learning how to take a L. And the fact of the matter is in life, we all going to take some L's. And how you take that L, you know, can really determine whether it's a lesson or your life. Personally, I prefer to get the lesson and not to lose my life, whether literally or figuratively. So, that is today's lesson of real game. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get something out of it. In the meantime, y'all stay safe, take it easy, and peace out. For real, though.